What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a very delayed episode number 4 of season 3 of Show Me Your Rig. Now, the reason that we've had a little bit of delay between episodes, or a good sized delay to be honest with you, is because of the reason that we discussed in our last episode. Entries for this season have kind of been few and far between, and it really does make me think that we're probably just going to shorten this season to 5 episodes instead of the normal 10, and then we'll reevaluate what we want to do with future seasons moving forward after that. We are still going to give away that $100 prize at the end of the season, regardless of if we do 10 or 5 episodes. So if you want to be considered for the final episode of season number 3 of Show Me Your Rig, make sure to get your entries into this email address right up here. Make sure to include all your PC specs, what you use the system for, as many high quality photos as you can, and any other information that you think I might be interested in when talking about your system. With that being said, though, we are continuing along with the theme for season 3, which is small form factor builds. Something that is near and dear to my heart, and I know that you guys love them too. So let's jump right in with our first system from Bjorn. System number 1 is from Bjorn J, and Bjorn writes, "Hello, here are a few pictures and backstory of my TU-150 build. I previously had these parts, minus the SF600 power supply, in a fractal design Define S. I've been wishing for an ITX build for a very long time, and my sister bought me the TU-150 for Christmas. The day after Christmas, I drove 200 kilometers to buy a SF600 to start the build ASAP. That is dedication. Everything except for the chassis, fans, SSDs, and the Noctua cooler has had a previous owner. I like used deals." That is a very smart way to go. "To improve temperatures on the VIG 56 in my build, I had previously changed the thermal pads and swapped out the stock cooler for 2 Noctua A12 fans." Interesting. "I was a little bit worried that my fan-modded Vega 56 wouldn't fit in the TU-150. To begin with, the fans were zip-tied onto the heatsink, okay, which proved to be sort of troublesome as one of the 2 fans conflicted with a tab sticking out from the heatsink when I was installing the GPU. This led me to removing both fans from the heatsink and screwing them onto the chassis bottom using the rubber standoffs that came with the chassis to put them as close as possible to preserve pressure." Interesting. I wonder what your temperatures are like. We're going to take a look at that in a second. "As you might have noticed, there's a cable running out of the back. That is coming from the light strip that I used to have on the back of my monitor. I figured it would look much better inside my case, seeing as I could route the USB cable as it runs out of the back. There was no I/O shield with the motherboard when I bought it, refurbed. Now, in hindsight, it feels good to be able to make use of that deficit." Interesting. Alright, so Bjorn, here's your system. Looks like you're watching one of my videos, so you score 1,000 points. Congratulations on that. The TU-150 is an awesome case. I built in it myself, and yeah, this is what builds in that case always look like. A little jammed up at the top with cabling, but all in all, a very compact, very functional build. And yeah, I see what you mean down here by your kind of makeshift GPU cooling solution. You got a Strix GPU down here. Oh, I didn't go through your parts, actually, so let's do that real quick, sorry. So the chassis is a TU-150, the motherboard's an Asus Maximus 8 Impact, the CPU is a D-lidded 7700K, GPU is a Vega 56 with a fan mod, the memory is Crucial. That's all it says, Crucial 2666. Power supply is an SF600 from Corsair. The SSDs are from Samsung, and you have a Western Digital Blue 500GB drive in there as well. Okay, so back to the photos. Yeah, so this is a Vega 56, and I guess you thought that it might be a problem fitting this in here, or maybe you didn't have the original cooling shroud or something along those lines. Like you say, you bought your parts secondhand, so it's, I guess, possible there was some problem with the Strix cooler that was on there already. So there's actually a photo that I want to get to, which is this one. So down here you can see that it looks like the original heatsink. He kept the original heatsink on the Vega 56, and then mounted these Noctua fans to the bottom of the case, and tried to use spacers down below to push them up as close to the heatsink as possible to try to make sure that the airflow was still pressurized enough that it was being forced through the heatsink. Which is interesting. Like I said, I really do wonder what your temperatures are like, but if you're going to do this kind of setup, I mean, I guess Noctua fans are what you want to be using. And, I mean, the rest of the build uses Noctua stuff too. it's a very interesting setup. I'd like to see how it runs for you, but I mean, assuming that you sent me the pictures of it running properly, then you're probably okay. I mean, who knows? It looks pretty unique, I'll tell you that. The purple lighting and the like the brown and tan accents on the Noctua fans are certainly interesting. And you have everything else in here as you should. There's really not a lot of cable management that you could do inside of this case, but I think you did the best you could, kind of putting everything up and to the side. You have the GPU cabling running down along the front, which is fine. When I built mine, I think I just came straight down or something like that. Like I said, there's not a lot of room in here. But yeah, this is definitely an interesting build, and I wanted to feature it because of your GPU cooling solution, which is definitely pretty unique. And I hope that it is something that is working really well for you. Secondhand for a lot of those parts, huh? That's pretty cool. Thank you very much, Bjorn, for sending in your TU-150 build, and let's move on to the next one. System number 2 is from Marat, and Marat writes, "My name is Marat, and I'm from Russia. I was browsing an LTT forum and found a build in a case called Motif Monument. It's a small American company building some awesome cases, but due to the fact that I live in a small town in Siberia, the shipping costs and a price of $250 is a bit steep for me, so I decided to build my own, which is awesome." He made some CAD drawings and found metalworking firm, and they laser cut, bent, and welded it for him. Marat writes, "I started the build with some very incompatible parts, and I do find this certainly very interesting, but he provided a BIOS shot of it working, so I guess it's working for him." He's got a Asus Z170i Pro gaming motherboard with an i5-9400F. That's not supposed to work. The Z170 platform was for the 6000 series chips, and the 9000 series chips, or the 9th gen, do not work with Z170. It's a different pin arrangement in the socket, or at least it's supposed to be. But like I said, we'll take a look at a BIOS shot of it working, apparently somehow. There's no explanation here as to how he got it working, but I guess it works. Anyway, with the rest of the stuff is a 16 gig kit of Corsair Vengeance RGB memory, a Western Digital Blue 500 gig SSD, Corsair SF600 power supply, and a Sapphire Pulse Vega 56. Marat continues, "I run Mac OS Mojave as my main OS, and Windows also for occasional gaming. All Mac OS features like iMessage, FaceTime, AirDrop, and so on work without any problems due to a genuine Apple Wi-Fi card." Interesting. For water cooling is using a Bixby block for the Vega 56, an EK monoblock for... He says an EK monoblock for Z270/Z370, but he's mounted it with the help of a Dremel and an angle grinder. So he's put some work into this build. 60 mil thick Barrow 240 radiator, Bixby DDC pump, and as the radiator is huge, there's no need for a reservoir. As the cherry on top, I could not get professionally made custom cables, so I made my own. There is a lot of custom work going on here with Marat's system, and it is really, really cool. So let me go back. This is what I was talking about. Z170i Pro Gaming motherboard, i5-9400F. I don't know. I mean, okay. I don't know how you manage that, but I guess it works. So here it is running Mac OS. So this is a Hackintosh build, but also dual boots to Windows. So he could do some gaming, he said. And it looks like the radiator is being held up, assisted by a roll of packing tape. I guess you do what you got to do. But the reason for that is these standoffs are what's holding up the radiator. And I guess the weight of it, just because it's a 60 mil rad and it's full of coolant, it's going to be pretty heavy. And maybe those standoffs were... Oh, you know what probably was happening? I bet the system was tipping backwards. I bet the rad was too heavy and it was just causing the whole thing to fall over. So maybe he's bracing it with this roll of tape. Who knows? But some interesting shots here of the way you routed your tubing and connected it all up in behind the back plate, I guess, of this custom case, which is freaking great. I always love to see custom built cases, especially like you're working around a problem, right? You saw this case, you liked the way it looked, but it was impossible for you to get it reasonably, so you built one yourself, which is so cool. So here's the main system, the Vega 56. I like these blocks with the temperature sensors on them. They look really neat, and the way you have this running in parallel, I don't know. This is just like, this is great. I really like this build. I wonder what you had to cut off of this this mono block in order to get it to fit. You said you had to do some angle grinding to it. And I'm surprised that you didn't match, because you made these cables, which look great, by the way. But I'm surprised you didn't match the coolant color with the cable sleeving. I mean, again, not that it looks bad in any way, but it just seems like that might be something that you would do if you're building this all like custom from scratch. But I think this looks awesome, and clearly it's very functional for you as well. So yeah, there we go. There's Murat's build, and I really dig this. I guess we've come to the end of our photos, but yeah, I really dig this build. I really like the way everything looks so clean. Like, even though you have everything running in parallel, the only tubes you see are the soft tubing coming between the CPU and the GPU. Everything else is kind of run back and then down below, because you have, here, let me scroll back a little bit, because you have this chamber down here where you could use for cabling, for tubing, and then you have this secondary cable management space back here as well. So, I mean, I know that you said you, I guess, copied this from a case that you saw online, but whoever did this for you, whoever helped you put this together and machine it, did a great job. It looks awesome. You did a great job building it, and considering this is almost all from scratch, that is even more impressive. So, Murat, congratulations on a great build. I still don't know how you got this working. This makes no sense to me, but good on you, man, and thanks for sending it in. Next up is Taylor O from Pontiac, Michigan. Taylor writes, I received this computer as a Christmas gift from my boyfriend of 3 years in 2017. He had been bugging me for months to play video games with him, as boyfriends tend to do, mostly PUBG and Titanfall 2, but he says that he built it for me to do schoolwork primarily. He modified the cooler because he said that the stock one was awful looking. It's an Intel stock cooler, so he's not wrong there. So he put an RGB fan grill on a white LED fan and then glued it to the top of the cooler to give it a really pretty two-tone effect. He also replaced the acrylic window on the side panel with a sheet of glass from a picture frame he found at Goodwill, because he knows that it would bother me if the acrylic got scratched up. Sounds like a good man. He also had the case painted by a local artist named Stacy Risner, which is awesome. He says it's not the best in terms of specs, but I love it, and it does more than what I need it to do. That's great. Thank you very much, Taylor, for sending this in. And let's quickly run down the specs. So the case is a Radeon Tech Metis. The CPU is an i3-4130T. Cooler is an Intel stock cooler modified with that fan and fan grill. Motherboard is a Gigabyte GA H81N mini ITX board. Memory is Crucial Ballistics LPX. Okay. The GPU is an EVGA GTX 1050. The SSD is a 240 gig Kingston UV400. Hard drive is a 500 gig Seagate, and power supply is an EVGA 450B. Now, one of the reasons that I wanted to show you guys this system build was not necessarily because it was the best in specs or it was the cleanest build or anything like that, but just to show you guys that. I mean, I really, really appreciate builds like this. There are many, the vast majority of people out in the consumer space can't afford the latest and greatest of everything. But you don't necessarily need the latest and greatest of everything. Most people don't, in fact. And making the most of what you have is something that you should take pride in and people should aspire to. So, for instance, this build uses some pretty low-end specs, and in order to make it her own for Taylor and her boyfriend, it's customized by a local artist, which is great. You're supporting local arts, and you know this is something that's unique to your build. You're not going to see anything else like this. You took a little time, or your boyfriend took a little time, put glass on the side of the case, which is a mod that I've done myself on these kinds of cases. So this is a glass pane instead of acrylic, which looks a lot better. It doesn't scratch up. You put the a fan grill and a different fan on the Intel stock cooler, so you're not looking at that ugly thing all the time. Make the most of what you have. And you said that this system works really well for you, and I don't doubt it at all. So I really appreciate you sending this in, because a lot of people might think that I can't send in my system, it's just not good enough. And who's to say that? If this works for you, then it's good enough, and you've made it your own, and it looks great, and it's super unique, and it's got your name on it. So Taylor, thank you so much for sending in your system. I really appreciate it. Tell your boyfriend he did a great job in modding it for you, and making it something that you love. And everybody else out there should take some notes from Taylor, and send in your system if you've done something creative with it. I'd love to see it. Thank you very much, Taylor. Let's move on to our last build. This last one is very cool. This one is from Tipsy Gamer, or Gustavo, and Gustavo is very brief in his description. He says, "This is my quote unquote, air quotes, work gaming PC, very portable at 3.9 liters. It's a very minimalist build and very portable, and also no RGB nonsense. Got to be on the low in a working environment." So the build has a Ryzen 5 1600 in it, Corsair LPX 3200 megahertz kit, 8x2, Gigabyte Aorus B450 ITX motherboard, Asus Phoenix GTX 1060 6GB, a Flex ATX power supply with custom cables. And he says, the case I ordered from a random Chinese site, it doesn't even have a name. So I actually did a little bit of research, and I found that that case is called the Red Wolf T39. I was looking for a website that I could show you guys to buy it, and I can't. Can't find one. I can't find any listings right now. But the case is a Red Wolf T39. They also make a T34, which is even smaller. It's 3.4 liters. Now, to give you an idea of comparison size for what 3.9, 3.4 liters, what that means, some cases that you guys might know, the TU150 that we looked up early in their episode has a volume of 23 liters. And the Dan case A1, I think, Dan case, the popular Dan case, is 7 liters. This is 3.9 liters, which is pretty amazing. And there's a photo here for size reference that blew me away. So here is the rear layout. You can see that the power supply, this is called Flex ATX. This is it almost looks like a server power supply in its form factor. It's very thin and longer, as opposed to ATX, which is kind of like a fat box. But you could see the size of just the ITX motherboard's I/O shroud, how it compares to the size of the case. It's like half of the entire case is just the I/O shield. And then here's the internal layout of this case, which is crazy. It barely fits a discrete GPU, like a GTX 10, whatever, the 1060 he said. And then here's that longer, thinner power supply down here, and the motherboard is just completely obscured by the GPU, but here's a better look at it with the GPU removed. Everything is just like wedged in here. This is, I don't know that you could potentially have a smaller case than this. I don't know that it's really possible. If a smaller case with the ability to fit a discrete GPU in it anyway. But this is so cool. I thought this was a really awesome way to show scale, because here's the GPU, you can see it outlined here, and then here's an Xbox controller. And then check this out. The entire case is basically the size of an Xbox controller. That is crazy. It is just, it's tiny. It has, the footprint on it is minuscule. 7 inches long. That's awesome. There's no more pictures. He didn't really send in a whole lot to take a look at it. But this was such a cool build. I tried to find this case so that I could do a build in it. And like I said, I couldn't find one to buy. Maybe at some point I'll be able to source one so I could do a build for you guys. And I don't even know. You can see if I can get my hands in here to do these, to do this this assembly. But I just thought this was really cool. Thank you very much for Gustavo for sending this in. and really appreciate it. This is really neat. Maybe we'll start to see smaller and smaller cases. So this might not be so crazy moving forward. But right now, this is probably the smallest case, smallest build that I've ever seen submitted on the channel for this for Show Me Your Rig. So thank you very much, Gustavo, and let's wrap it up. So guys, that'll do it for episode number 4 of Show Me Your Rig season number 3. As a reminder, again, next episode number 5, is going to be the last one that we do for this season. So if you want to have a chance at that $100 gift card, make sure you send in your photos. This email address right up here, write it down, send in your photos, all your information, your system specs, all that good stuff. And hopefully we'll see you guys probably next month with the wrap-up episode, and then we're going to vote. So make sure you stick around, get subscribed for that if you want to have a say in who gets the prize for the small form factor build of Show Me Your Rig. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. Check out the merchandise store for hoodies like this one, link down below, bpscustoms.com. Get subscribed, toss a like on this video if you liked it, and I'll see you next time.